Hey everybody, Coach here. Speaking metaphorically, we are going to talk about the royal family of landscape plants this week. Hands down, my favorite landscape plants. A very consistent landscape theme that I did almost without fail throughout my designing career and my construction career was the heavy use of perennials, hardy perennials, those plants that live 5 to 7 years. And I use these in the form of fillers in the landscape. Spacing is so important, and what the perennials did in the spacing concept of landscape design was they filled in as the shrubs and trees got their hold and started doing their thing. The perennials would fill in those spaces and voids in the landscape and make the landscape look fuller quicker. You know, if you select the right perennials and you put them in the right place under the right conditions, that smaller 18-inch by 18-inch perennial fills in just right between those two barberry. Or that 24 by 24-inch perennial fills in wonderfully in between the arborvitae and the juniper that's filling in underneath. Whatever it might be. Another added bonus, and many people don't consider this when they think about perennials. The added bonus is you get free plants. That's right, free plants. And I'll use one of my favorites called tick seed or coreopsis as an example. Man, after 2 or 3 years, you can go in there in the wintertime and dig that thing up, divide it into 3s, put 1 back in, and you got 2 new free plants that you can do what you want to do with. When shopping for perennials, I highly suggest that you really start planning it out in the late winter. And when I say late winter, that's kind of a varying term depending on where you live. That's when you're doing your planning, you're saying, hey, I want to get a few of those, 2 of those, 7 of these, blah, blah, blah. And now you wait for the availability at your retail outlet to come into vogue. And usually down in the south, you're going to see it in February, mid-country or mid-globe, March and April. And then up in the northern latitudes, you'll see it in late April, May, and into June. Perennials are kind of priced in the same range as, your shrubs, nowadays anyway. Sometimes you can find them on sale, but most of the time you're going to find them in gallon cans and 4-inch pots, and on occasion, six-pack, cell pack types. Perennials can be found for full blazing sun, they can be found for deep shades, and they can be found for part sun locations. They're so varied. You know, the care of perennials is almost easier than shrubs and trees. Everything, and I mean everything success related for perennial planting has to do with that hole you put it in, the preparation you take, the types of soils you're putting it in, and your attentiveness to what that perennial needs as far as a successful place to grow. Sun, water, food, and soil. If you create that right environment, you know, it is going to thrive for you. And yes, I've made my own mistakes with perennials as well. When I was a noob in the horticultural business, I can remember wanting to plant some plants that attracted hummingbirds and butterflies. I had to go back in and do the old thinning, and I thinned them down to 2 out of 5. I had to take 3 of them out of there because they just grew so fast, and I did not pay attention at a young age of what the mature size was. I was going for the look at the time of planting. So something to keep in mind. Remember the mature size. The other thing is remember your planting plan. When you're planting, you know, on your own out there, consider, you know, tall in the back or tall in the center. Those fillers can, you know, you get a little Patriot hosta and you're putting it in a morning sun situation. You know, they're going to get maybe 24 by 24 inches in the first 5 years or so. So don't slam them together and plant them 18 inches apart. Remember that they go down in the front of the morning sun bed and not in the back, and you have something big in front of it. You know, that's silly. So remember your planting plan and lay it out just like you did your trees and shrubs. So, you know, many of the perennials that I've used, some of my favorites, I'd like to share with you. And I'm sure many of you who are as versed or even more versed in perennials than I am, you'll recognize them right away. But some of you may not, and maybe you want to check them out, okay? So here they are in the importance to me for color, longevity, lower maintenance, performance, and the capability of being divided later on. Those are kind of what I round out my favorites with. So let's start with sunny locations first, shall we? One of my all-time favorites that I discovered probably about, I don't know, a dozen years ago is dwarf Bidens. Bidens have become a very popular low-maintenance type of perennial that really do perform well. They have a very long blooming season, and even that season can be extended out further with just a little bit of shearing and a little bit of haircut here and there. I will tell you, Bidens do, if you don't deadhead them really well, they do go to seed, and they will sprout right underneath the parent plants. So be aware of that. But Bidens are a great way to front a bed, nice low growing, you know, probably 15 inches or less. And if you have retaining walls or boulders, they will get full enough to where they start to spill a little bit. A nice cascading yellow tapestry right over a retaining wall or boulders, very nice. Another one, and I mentioned it earlier, Coreopsis, or commonly called tick seed. There's all kinds of varieties out there right now, and I love the shorter ones. Early Sunrise is a great one, but it requires a little more maintenance. I really like Moonbeam and Rosea, some of the tighter, more dwarf ones. Those are the ones that I like. But you know, you can see some of these varieties that I'm showing you right now. They're a fantastic, hardy, long-term performer in the growing season that you can really use and then divide and transplant if you want. One of my other ones, this one comes into vogue when the other ones are starting to get tired, and that's Rudbeckia, or Black-Eyed Susan. And they are also a warm season, warm palette type of flower. You can get them in oranges and reds and yellows, and I love the single ones where that dark center is in the middle of the flower. I love Rudbeckia. It does not like super wet feet, but it performs very well in the heat of late summer and into autumn. A fantastic one. And following right on its shirt tails is Aster. Aster comes in right about the same time, and I love combining those two. Asters are a cool palette, so you can use those as a contrast. Usually shorter than Rudbeckia, so Rudbeckia in the back and Asters in the front. Fantastic look to them. And rounding out my sunny locations is Monarda, Bee Balm, Veronica, Speedwell, Salvia, like I told you about hummingbird attractors, and Liatris, or Gay Feather. Those guys are fantastic, and you don't see them all the time. So they're really a nice, hey, what kind of flower is that type of conversation piece. All right, moving on to part sun and shade. Go for the hostas, Japanese painted fern, one of my favorite perennial ferns ever. My God, the looks of those ferns when they first come out in the springtime with the silver and greenish burgundy look to them, a fantastic shady complementary thing with hostas and azaleas and rhodies and hydrangea. Fantastic. Again, down in front, okay? And rounding out some of my shady favorites is Dicentra, Bleeding Heart, Brunera, especially Queen of Hearts. I love that plant. Oh my God. I have a love affair with Brunera. I did it. Take a look at this plant right here, okay? Because that was plant of the week back in the fall, I believe. And I found that where? Missoula, Montana, of all places. Yeah. Queen of Hearts Brunera, a fantastic plant. Columbine and Astilbe. Those are my shady morning sun type of perennials that I think are just fantastic. And deadheading those, you can get secondary and even third blooming cycles. Not quite as big as the primary, but they still perform well. Perennials are a very versatile plant. They can be placed obviously out in the garden, but they can also be a container plant depending on your variety. You can have not just landscape filler plants, but you can create whole tapestries of perennials. Very cottage garden theme type of a perennial garden, or a centerpiece in the middle of a large lawn. And when I say centerpiece, large lawn, I mean something that's 25 feet long by 15 feet deep. Make a splash if you have that kind of space. It will be fantastic. It will be the kind of thing that when everything comes in, people are slowing down on the road to go, oh, look at that. Isn't that pretty? That's the kind of statements that perennials make. The best success I ever had with perennials was following a fertilizing program that always started out with Stone starter fertilizer. Now, no, I'm not sponsored by them. It just happens to be the products that I've used. Stone starter fertilizer for the planting hole. I did a little bit of Miracle Grow at half strength for the first 3 months, and then it would fall into that 4 times a year category where I would use dry fertilizers and scratch in and around the perennial. They always seem to do very well for me. I hope they do well for you as well. Hey, I got a favor to ask of you. If you have a favorite perennial or one that has performed very well for you, maybe it was one that I mentioned, or maybe it's one that I did not mention, I'd love for you to send me a picture of it. Or drop it down in a comment below. Say, hey, check out blah, blah, blah. I think you'll like that one too. I love researching and learning new stuff all the time. And that's what I've learned back here in the Appalachian Mountains. We're gonna go take a couple pictures of that lady slipper orchid, something I would never have thought that I would have stumbled across. And if you guys would really like to bolster your landscape education, hey, do me a favor, support the old codger here and go to the website, youryardcoach.com. We always put it right there. Check out the book, Landscaping Simplified, and check out the digital course, Homescape 1.0. A fantastic way to bolster all the landscape education that you would need to take on a landscape project yourself. I guarantee it. Well, that's what I have today. The prince and princesses of the residential landscape, those perennials. Man, I sure do love them. And I can't wait to find some more native ones right here in the mountains of Georgia. I will catch you guys next Friday, every Friday. Go out there and get those hands dirty. Put something in the ground constructively and enjoy it. It's a wonderful, cathartic, leisurely hobby that you get great returns on. I'll catch you guys next Friday, guys. Bye for now.